going to talk about a case study application on my work in the UK, and I promised to have our talk for 12 minutes. I'll try to do that. Right, so we talk about climate change and sustainability, and we've been talking about sustainable the knowledge exchange and knowledge transfer and sustainable economy, and this is just a shift. It's a case study on sustainability in the context of transportation. So we do lots of work on the climate change and sustainability and the impacts on the global air quality in the UK and in the other parts of the world. The Middle East is the least part of the world where this type of work is encouraged and carried out, because they have other interests, because they have no time, they have not enough resources, or they are not interested. But it is a very important area. As Alam said, we're trying to do work in the Middle East based on the work we do here, and transfer and exchange knowledge in these areas. So I'll just talk about few areas of this research we're doing, and the applications in the Middle East, I'll leave that to discussions or further meetings, etc. So in the area of traffic and the problems of delays and congestion and negative impacts on the air quality, and the efforts of the governments in the West and the UK and the United States and other countries to reduce emissions. There are lots of regulations, there are lots of empirical work and research to investigate the emissions and the right levels of emissions and the regulations required to keep these levels of emissions in place, etc. Also to increase the awareness of the air quality and the work required to maintain this air quality and reduce pollution. More efforts at the local level have also been put in place to contribute to meeting the targets. Most of the work in this area coming at the local level. The aims and targets are set at a higher level, but most of the work are done at a local level. My areas of research are these, and I'm presenting them or showing them to show that actually the area of sustainability and air quality and emissions, it requires lots of integrations. And I think that's very, very important part of the work we do. We need to integrate efforts and knowledge and work in a number of areas in order to achieve sustainability. We need to work together, researchers and politicians and decision makers and academics in a number of areas. So I've done work on the travel behavior and travel demand management, safety and accidents, pedestrian behavior and accidents, and environmental modeling and air pollution, global warming, investigation of performance of transport policies. And we've been listening to the previous presentations where we talked about measurements and the assessment and the performance indicators, and we need these in order to achieve sustainability. We need to be able to measure and assess what we are doing and revisit our targets and assess the findings we've done. The ITS, information technologies, and the role of information into sustainability and achieving sustainability is great, and it is the feature of the current era, as someone presented rightly this morning. So there is lots of potential, there's a lot of work being done, and there is a lot of lessons for us to learn and to transfer and to exchange to the Middle East. There are lots of examples from the Middle East and lots of experience where we can learn from and we also can maintain. Like, for example, as we're discussing over lunch, in a lot of the countries in the Middle East, the poorer ones, there are very heavy demand on the public transport, in the forms of public transport. And maybe this is in the process of change, but perhaps there are opportunities to maintain these levels of heavy reliance on public transport and maintain it, rather than see it developing into shift to private modes of transport, then start making efforts and putting measures forward in order to reverse these patterns. On the other hand, on other countries, there are very heavy demand on the private modes of transport, and this needs interference and consideration at this time, and then also needs consideration of the appropriate modes of transport and the appropriate requirements in these areas of the forms of public transport, and working in that direction in order to be able to implement them and find the right modes of public transport in some countries, taking into account the social background and the mentalities and the culture and the requirements, etc. The problem in a lot of the Middle Eastern countries is that most of the research and transport policies are designed to reduce congestion or improve safety. When we talk about sustainability and the air quality, we need to improve the air quality and the environment. However, when we start working, we work on using policies and devise policies and measures which are designed to reduce congestion. And we say that the air quality will be improved as a byproduct, but it's not necessarily the case will be. So a lot of the transport policies are implemented in the UK and in the Middle East cities and countries because there are opportunities, there are similar measures being implemented somewhere else and being successful because there is some knowledge in the applications of these policies. So the last reason for some policies to be implemented is the actual need, the local need for these policies. So what I'm trying to say here is that we need to look at the local conditions, identify the exact local problems, and then devise appropriate solutions to deal with these problems. And we are very rarely doing that. So I put here horses for courses. We need to devise horses for courses. And when we don't do that, when we don't devise horses for courses, we tend to end up with problems somewhere else or for someone else or on something else. So we try to solve a problem and we usually end up with another problem somewhere else or for some thing else. So I think that is very important and relevant here. Maybe also the boundaries. You have to be more aware of what are the implications of some of the policies or measures we set to solve the problems. And that's why I think engineers are good to rely on. I'm just saying that because everybody criticizes engineers. So I'll just mention a couple of examples here on some of the policies, transport policies we use to solve certain problems and show typical or examples of problems we end up with. For example, park and ride. Park and ride are schemes designed to transport the car users from car parks where they park their cars and then move them or transport them to the busy congested areas. So we tend as transport planners to design and plan park and ride schemes to do exactly that. So we design park and ride where car drivers drive their cars to the locations of park and ride, leave their cars there, then get the park and ride bus to the city center. Neglected impacts that some bus users find this type of scheme is very attractive to them. So they leave their buses and start to drive their cars to the park and ride place and then get the bus to the city center. So the possible outcomes I'm referring to here, we get shift from buses to park and ride. So we encourage the driving. We encourage more car usage and more mileage to be driven. And we don't get impact, we don't get any shifters from the car users. So that is, we created negative travel behavior, and we didn't get what we wanted to do because our strategy or our policy wasn't well designed and wasn't taking into account all the possible impacts, and we neglected some users or possible or potential players here. There are other examples as well. I'll just skip them now. The second policy I might just want to talk about a little bit is the congestion charging policies, where it's becoming very famous and interesting and relevant policies. Most of the local authorities in the UK discuss the possibilities of introducing congestion charging to achieve reduction in congestion and to improve the environment and to improve safety targets, etc. In the actual fact, congestion pricing is very attractive to the local authorities because of the revenues generated from it. But it's never been publicized or announced on that target or objective. And that's why it's a very mixed up views and messages and opinions and potential results of congestion charging. Congestion charging was implemented in London, was basically forced on the Londoners, was rejected heavily in Edinburgh because it wasn't very clear and the design of the policy wasn't actually sold or posted to the users on its actual grounds. So in my opinion, if congestion charging to be implemented successfully, or any other transport policy, if it is designed to reduce congestion, it has to be designed for the reduction of congestion. The pricing has to be appropriate to the level of congestion, and the whole scheme has to be designed on that. If it is to raise revenues, so the design of the policy has to be announced and designed and sold to the public on that basis, clearly and honestly. So I think based on this argument, all our transport policies or any other policies has to be appropriately designed to solve the problem we have, and we have to be clear about what's our problems and how are we dealing with it. Have I done my 12 minutes? Okay. So I think the message I'm trying to say here, in order to achieve sustainability, we need to be very aware of the exact local problems and conditions of the case or the city or the country we are dealing with, and then devise the appropriate policies which are able and adequately able to solve these problems. I'll stop at that, and I think the other 40 slides are not very important.
Okay,
if there is one question, I'm happy to.